Evaluation question 1. In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? When carrying out the research and development phase of my project, I found that it was very important to analyze and reflect the conventions and conceived styles of various different media platforms. This is important as I can use them as influence for my final piece. During this stage, I had discovered many different theoretical and practical theories that have been established by various media platforms and are now commonly known conventions. Laura Mulvey's male gaze theory, a feminist theory that states all media is seen through the perspective of a heterosexual male, and Todorow's theory of constructed narratives, which to put shortly is a theory that states all films and other forms of narratives must have a clear beginning, middle, and end, being two strong examples. I had researched further into these separate theories and began to contemplate on how I could apply them into my final media piece. After further research into existing media products, I found that a small handful of media content creators had chosen to abandon these preset conventions and invert them as a way of creating a piece of postmodernism art, or media in this case. This is evidenced in the cult film Donnie Darko, directed by Richard Kelly. In this film, there is no clear beginning, middle, or end, as the narrative does not seem to play out chronologically, but instead seems to be playing out in a continuous loop, as some scenes even overlap each other. This departure from Todorow's theory of constructive narratives forced viewers to sit in multiple viewings of the same movie, allowing them to comprehend the convoluted storyline. This also led the film to become a critical and commercial success. Richard Kelly's departure from mainstream movie conventions had influenced me to create my own piece of postmodernism media. This is evident in my final project, as the narrative is not clear and I deliberately placed scenes in a non-chronological order as a way of challenging Todorow's theory of narrative. As far as the male gaze theory goes, in contemporary media, it is quite common to see the over-sexualization of female roles across all known genres of movies. In order to invert this convention, I had decided to implement a non-sexual but strong female lead into my narrative. This is evident in my final piece, as my female lead is not sexualized in any way, but instead empowered through her overcoming her fears and current situations. These adaptations made to preset conventions come in complete contrast to my ancillary task, as I felt in order to successfully pass this task, I must reflect the forms and conventions of existing movie marketing campaigns, thereby replicating the authenticity needed to successfully market my media product. Not much research was needed for this section, as I was already familiar with the conventions I needed due to me undertaking a similar task for my previous media coursework. The main conventions featured in almost all drafts of my movie posters included the masthead, aka title and logo of the film, an eye-catching tagline, names of the actors featured in the film, a credit block featuring the names of directors, producers, and ECT, and finally, the date of the film's release. In addition to these conventions, I had also researched into the certain conventions that were exclusive to horror movie posters. From this research, I had discovered that horror movie posters all share a limited color scheme, consisting of the colors black, red, and white, with black being the most prominent of the colors. To expand on this, here are two examples of horror movie posters, and here is my final horror movie poster. As you can see, all three posters follow the conventions of using a limited color scheme consisting of black, red, and white. The main images also seem to be engulfed by the black color from their surroundings. This is used to connote the dark themes of the film. In addition to this, the color red is also used to connote the themes of death and or homicide, depending on the subgenre of the film. The white could be used as a way of connoting the innocence and protagonist at the beginning of the film, which is juxtaposed with the trials and tribulations they will face throughout the course of the film. Like I had stated earlier in my blog, I was already familiar with the conventions of magazine prints prior to me undertaking this task, but I felt it was still a crucial step to analyze several movie magazines to develop a deeper understanding of the conventions and forms I needed to replicate onto my own work. Whilst I was researching, I came across a niche magazine print entitled Fangoria, which seems to be heavily catered towards the dedicated fans of horror movies. Upon further reviewing of the magazine conventions, I had begun to notice a trend in the type of fonts, imagery, and language featured. Besides the fact that they were all horror inspired, they all seemed to be sporting the same horror color scheme I had mentioned earlier. The color scheme was accompanied with the chilling imagery and fonts that were scattered around the page. This would usually consist of blood stains and fonts that replicate the effect of blood dripping from individual letters. These are all conventions that I had decided to implement into my horror magazine, as I felt they best represented the horror genre and were the most effective at attracting my print demographic.